Hi, and welcome to our Smithers&Wing Q&A. I'm Heather Palmer, I'm the writer on Smithers&Wing, and this is my lovely co-collaborator, Kirsty Hunter.
I thought you were going to say assistant, and I would be like...
This is my glamorous assistant and art monkey, Kirsty Hunter.
Accurate, very accurate.
Please just be impressed I remembered both our names. Well done. So we are taking some questions that we've had from our beloved Kickstarter backers, from our friends and supporters from the wider community, and we're excited to talk Smithers&Wing with you. I'll kick off, Kirsty, with this question from the wonderful Nathaniel of Knight Errant Press. You should all check out Knight Errant. They're bringing out great books. What are your sources of inspiration?
I feel like this will be most interesting from you because you obviously incepted Smithers&Wing and brought it to me as like definitely a partially, if not fully formed baby, like an advanced fetus, let's say.
Let's, to be gross.
But for me, I don't know, like I obviously love a bunch of other comics in terms of like spooky, mysterious business. I love Letty Wilson stuff. Like I'd love to be able to draw demons and creatures like her. I love Becky Cloonan as well. Like I'd love to be able to do those like spooky vibes, and I love Max Sarin stuff on like Giant Days. Like I'd love to be that much of like an excellent cartoonist to really capture like expressions in comedy, but it's always one of those things where you love the way a million people draw and would love to absorb it, but you're like, oh, I draw how I draw. And you just have to like plug on with that, I guess.
You just draw your own amazing, spectacular style. So sad.
You do what you can, and then the fuck ups add up to being some sort of aesthetic is the hope.
I think there's a lot of people wishing that they could fuck up the way you're fucking up. That sounds like quite inspired.
But I guess I could take some credit because I basically came to you and demanded a comic from you, and demanded that it was, I can't remember specifically, sexy.
It did say sexy, yeah. And then I gave you smooching at the beginning to lead you in, and then I was like, no, it's a mystery.
And no more. That's our one not safe for work page.
And that's why it's on the Kickstarter. To lure other people in.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'll maybe do some sort of additional story with them at some point.
It's all police work, paperwork from now on.
Yeah, but later, Smithers&Wing After Hours, we can make it happen. It'll be like Hollyoaks.
I'm immediately thinking of Hollyoaks After Hours and all the smut that happens there. One of us is going to have a baby without knowing that we're pregnant or something.
It's going to be dramatic. It'll be great.
Super dramatic. For me, I read quite a lot of mysteries. I've been reading quite a lot of Agatha Christie. And some of Agatha Christie's, some of her mystery work, but that was more recently. But I mean, clearly I've been raised on mysteries. Mystery people, big Morse people. I feel like there was always a lot of crime going on in our house, so I've ended up writing mysteries. I also write Gravewax, which is a supernatural mystery as well. It's in Highlands. And yeah, so there's been like a lot of mystery percolating. I wrote it quite a long time ago, so I'm having trouble remembering what I was reading at the time. What was happening then. I was reading quite a lot of fantasy 2017, 2018. A lot of like Torch Against the Night, Ember in the Ashes, that series, and a good amount of obviously like horror comics as well. Love a bit of Junji Ito, all the good stuff. And also like in my circle of writer people, there's a lot of like horror and grossness going on. Obviously the icon that is John Lees is always bringing something terrible. So that's like a great way to be inspired to push it further, is to like deal with people like John Lees. Be amongst that kind of process as well. It's really, really interesting.
Like, this is obviously a while into the process and wouldn't have impacted you because you had already written it and I was already in the process of drawing it. But when we both read The Ninth House as well, like
Yeah,
that was so good. That just seemed to like really cement, like, oh, cool, this is like very much of the vibe that we're both into.
exactly. Yeah, it was like that was the perfect vibe. Yeah, of the sweet, sweet dark academia.
Which is nice as well because you can kind of be like in the midst of something and be like so close to it, you're like, oh, I've almost lost what it is we're going, or at least that I'm going for here and trying to achieve. And then you're like, oh no, cool, no, this is exactly it.
That's right, and you can always go back to Ninth House and recapture that and be like, oh yes, yes, this is it. I do a lot of like saving of Instagram stories for the vibes, or Instagram like posts that have got like abandoned scapes in them and stuff like that, which have got like a good way to recenter the vision. um, a question from Katrina. How I can't read. Have you been working on on other stories together? Sorry, I truly can't read today.
Not well, we have had one in the past, even though it was like a one pager.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh, it was a one pager.
Total blast from the past.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, so me and Heather collaborated for We Shall Fight Until We Win, which was an anthology selection of comics about kind of women who've made an impact in politics. And I'm trying to think how we ended up doing it together. I think towards the end, Sha was like, "Do you want a page, Sha, for BHP Comics?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to have a crack at a page, and also to work with Heather." So ours was just it was just a one page about Shami Chakrabarti. Is that right?
Yeah. At a really interesting point in her career as well.
Yeah.
Things were weird then for her. It's really interesting.
I like the way you handled it as well, because I think you tried to go for like a fairly balanced approach that, you know, alluded to that without like casting it either to like one side or the other in a very strong way. And I think a lot of that book was kind of going for that vibe as well.
Exactly. My other story in that was Margaret Thatcher, so that was
Yeah, I respect you for taking that on.
I know. I was
like, pat her right out the book. Let's get
exactly.
right.
I know. That's fair. There was a real temptation to do that, and then it was like it was one of those things you couldn't exclude her. But then, yeah, we had to tell the artist that we were working with, like, this is not. It's not going to be great. We don't love her. So it was safe.
Don't make her look too good. Just like
oh yeah, it's like absolutely not. Absolutely not. So Sarah has asked, would love to know more about the process. How do you start? How do you plan the storyline and images together or separately, a bit of both? So how do we start? Smithers&Wing started with the names Smithers&Wing, which is really fun. I almost always start with the title. And then I sort of go from there. And sometimes things line up, I don't even realize that they've lined up. Anyway, so yeah, back when I worked in retail, I had customers who were friends, and they came in and their second names were Smithers and Wing, and they were getting their parcels delivered to the same house, and it was written on the sheet Smithers and Wing, and I was like, that's an absolutely iconic duo name. I just stole it. There are Glaswegian friends out there with the names Smithers and Wing. They find our book. I know. Yeah, and it's just you'd also asked for this book, and I was like, percolating another kind of mystery, and those were clearly like supernatural detective names, like those. Yeah, those customers are
yeah.
some kind.
I'm totally interested. At what point did like the characters come to you?
Oh, that probably was like staring at a wall still in that retail job.
Good time for thinking.
Yeah, really good for thinking. Yeah, I tend to like think without really thinking about it. Like the characters are quite naturally formed. They talk a lot. I like imagine kind of scenes and they talk to each other, and then they slowly kind of become fully formed characters that way. Rather than like sitting down and being like, well, I want, the sort of cop and the mystic. It wasn't really a conscious thought. It was a lot of just like seeing how it went and a kind of instinct on how people interact, and like, yeah, when you end up with odd couples.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just sort of how they interacted just kind of built their character out from there, which was fun. How did you start thinking about what the aesthetic would be?
Much like you, I didn't do an Instagram thing, but I started putting together a Pinterest board, which is nice because it feels like work. And it is, I guess, technically work, but much easier. And then from that, I guess I started making some like sketches, and at first it was like more like objects. I could see them owning or like existing in their world. Like I've got like skulls and teapots they would own, and I tried to think of like stuff that would like be in their office. Like I've got sketches of like monkey's paws and stuff like that. I'm trying to think, and then obviously started kind of envisioning what the characters would look like as well, which was like fairly immediate. I feel like I should have explored a lot more options, but I kind of instantly had I can't even remember. Do you remember in your first descriptions you sent to me if there were a lot of physical descriptions?
No, because I'm terrible at remembering to do that. I'm like, there's a picture in my brain of a weird amorphous shape called Smithers, and I assume you'll pick up on what she's supposed to look like, right?
That's funny, yeah, because I was like, I wonder if I got that from Heather. I wonder if she just like laid it out, because they both were fairly clear from the start, and probably very influenced by TV I was watching at the time as well. Like Smithers is like part Mackenzie Davis from like *Halt and Catch Fire* that I was obsessed with, particularly with like her lankiness and the kind of clothes she wears as well. And Wing is obviously very Sandra Oh, as the print has like made obvious to everyone at this point. But
They're both perfection.
I'm trying to think aesthetic wise too, like John Lees very kindly made a nice comment about like the locations in the comic, and said that they kind of grounded it and were quite realistic. And part of that is because, I'm like, yes, let's have all the reference and use that. Like I'm not as good as just like pulling it out of thin air, but also because I guess a lot of the mysteries that I enjoy tend to be like, well, I love a lot of Law and Order, and I love a lot of like David Fincher as well, which is like so good for that genre of just people going to libraries and figuring stuff out, which just is the greatest. We love it. We love for it. So like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Seven stuff, and it is these quite bleak, quite normal, quite based in reality places. But I like the thought of having those kind of established and be very much part of like our world, but then being able to like really break out of that once the magic started happening, which is one of the fun things, I think.
And what I was really keen on for this was that it was very much happening in Edinburgh. It was very much part of the real world. My other book with Alan McRitchie, Gravewax, is set out in the Highlands, like totally away. Like you couldn't really figure out a time period or where on earth this weird town is. But I really wanted this to be totally grounded in reality, and like, yeah, that they're out of work and it's a big financial problem, and yeah, that for this like tide to turn where suddenly they've got a bigger problem than they can reasonably deal with.
I always love that as well when there's like supernatural stuff going on, but it's just like beyond the notice of most people and very much still in like her normal world. That's always great fun.
Yeah. And Lydia did ask us about the settings. She says strong Edinburgh vibes. Did you discuss that, or did it happen naturally? But that was always going to be Edinburgh. Like that was
Yeah,
all.
you forced me into that, so I had to go along with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And that time I was spending almost no time in Edinburgh, and I obviously we're Glasgow people. Like Edinburgh, terrible place, shocking place, awful.
Love you, Edinburgh backers.
No, I'm joking. But it does have that incredible magic, and it also has that vibe of, people are just baked in privilege, and that is something that they come up against in quite a big way. And there is, yeah, you encounter it a lot, and where people are just completely oblivious to this privilege because they're just in this Edinburgh echo chamber. And that was, yeah, I was keen to get that in there because some of these people are like in the comic are like really well to do and like fancy big houses, which is beautiful to look at, but there's also this like there's like scumbaggery going on, behind the doors. So
yeah, and I think when we went for, like, I've already tweeted this, spoilers at Lydia, but like actually kind of wandering around those locations with you to try and, like, I think we were gathering like photographs and discussing like potential situations for later scenes, but it was like, yeah, no, this feels right for them. Like I could get into this.
Yeah, we covered so much ground that day, and I nearly got run down. Do you remember that?
Did I lead you out into the middle of the road or something?
No,
I'm really bad
I think
at
you
road
actually
crossing.
saved my life. Close call. Yeah, so thank goodness it's Smithers&Wing. Yeah, in terms of planning the storyline together, you had a lot of editorial in this book, which is quite unusual, but it happens to be one of your incredible strengths. So I had written a script. It was still, at the time, it was still the best script I'd ever written.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, thank you very much. But nothing can replace like a good editor. And you were incredible in that role, and I gave you this this script, and you were like, yeah, I really like it, but like we can push all these things so much further, and they were brilliant ideas. And I always feel like when you've written something, the artist then comes up with these new ideas, and they're like the best parts of it are these new ideas that you've brought, because you get like bored of your own twists. Yeah, and then like sometimes you write a twist and then you forget it's a twist, and you're just like why does that? And it's like, well, I forgot the twist. Anyway, but yeah, you brought like incredible editorial work, so that improved it like no end.
I think I'm gonna look like someone who just like totally wedges in as well and was like, Heather, actually I have notes, but I think just like instantly reading it, I was so into it and was like, I'm really invested in these characters. I'm really invested in both of their arcs and what happens in their relationship, and also just like, I guess, come into a mystery as well as someone that's not seen it before. Like I cannot imagine how you'd go about crafting a mystery. Like I could sit down and beat my head against a wall and still like have nothing. I'd be like, wait, so they need to know this at this point, but not at this point. We need to like slowly reveal stuff. So I don't know, it was cool to come to that like as a reader and basically get to experience it, whereas like I guess you'd been like very much in amongst it for a while.
I had been tweeting about how I was never going to write a character smarter than me ever again for some time. I was like, yeah, I was really losing it because they're both so smart. And yeah, there's so much stuff that you have to do to make a character that's smarter or intelligent in a different way. Like they're so methodical and evidence-based. And I'm just like, so writing Wing was a real challenge because she's so smart and she's so serious. But yeah, having like I think that was really unexpected that you had come back with all these notes, and like I was like, wow, this is such a lot of work. And then I was like, okay, you've like taken on a whole new role of being the editor, and I was like, okay, we're doing it.
Nobody asked for this, but it's happening.
I'm getting it. But then, because I hope I've credited you enough, because then I submitted that script for the New Writers Award, which I got. So I'm always like, I think we did that together.
No, that's
Share it.
nonsense. That's absolute nonsense.
Well, I think it's interesting as well because that was the first comics person that they'd allowed in.
Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting because my scripting style is really like loose and very storytelling orientated, which I think is really good when it comes to giving it to an artist and then you having editorial because you're not so bedded down in the details of like how you're going to work that angle because it's like, you know, like a panel angle from where my view of a badger.
Your script is really good for getting across, like, not just like you won't so much stage it out as like, oh, we need to see this at this point, and then we need to see this, and this is the action happening here. Like, you get across what it is you're trying to say with that page and what like the feeling of it should be, and like where characters are both at that point, what the general atmosphere is, and then it's like much more interesting to have that and be like, well, okay, I know kind of what we need to achieve with this, and like what is the best way to kind of lay it out so that people can understand that.
Yeah. One of the like my favorite things as well in scripts is to make them a bit funny. Yeah, try and like put a few jokes in. We did have a good few jokes. I remember having to edit them out to send them to the book trust.
Yeah, you have lots of like little asides to me and stuff, which is really nice.
I was like, Kirsty, I'm sorry about this. I think that's totally fine as well to write a script that is doable.
Yeah.
Because if it's a nonsense, then that's good to learn from. So how do you research and what have you found most helpful when researching? We did do quite a lot of research for this.
I mean, you definitely did.
I did research in the beginning into like secret societies, and I was also researching and still am a cult, like a UK based, or it used to be UK based cult. It's big in America now, and so I was like deep in the sort of mechanics of those power systems, and like really pissed off with the patriarchy. Which I mean is just a foundation of our personalities, so that's fine. So there's a lot of research into that, and then we did quite a lot of research into magic as well.
Yeah. The Icelandic staves were like all heather, and that was like a pretty huge influence on the way that the magic looks in the book.
Yeah, that was a trip to the Icelandic Museum of Witchcraft.
I wish I could have gone on that trip for research.
The necropants, where they're like, when I close my eyes, I see the necropants. I do tend to end up doing quite a lot of research. I think that's really helpful. At the moment, I'm reading about hyperobjects, and that doesn't feel helpful right now, but later it will be helpful.
I'm just thinking, I guess I did some research into the experiences of people with like using prosthesis, just to try and make sure that I didn't like do anything ridiculous with Wing. And it's like not come up too much yet because she's been wearing it for the most part, and she's also been like in public rather than in private. But I watched like a fair few like YouTube videos of like very helpful and informative people who were like, this is my life, this is how I deal with these various tasks. And I think that was like really interesting and useful and good.
Yeah, definitely a good that would have been something I would hate if it had gone wrong as well. I mean, it probably could still could. Why am I saying this?
It still could go very wrong.
Yeah, but like I'm glad that you did that research because yeah, you want to like represent people well and like not be an asshole about it.
I think it makes it more interesting as well. Like you want to know like how these people are in their bodies and like the way they carry themselves and stuff, because that's kind of like, again, it's one of the things that I'd love to work on in my comics, that like you can do so much for getting your characters across, and it's like, oh, you want those like little details ideally.
Yeah, and they're like body language together as well. So interesting the way you draw that. I'm just singing your praises for this entire Q&A. Let me just find the next question. Did we ask this question from Lydia about, did you know Kirsty would be drawing it when you started writing, and how did it affect your approach?
Oh, I
to
don't
the
think so.
story. Yes, I think we did say earlier that we always knew this was going to be the two of us. I did affect that because like how I wrote the story, because I went back to your other work and like checked out what kind of the way you like to draw things. And then we
Just
chatted
to be
about
clear
it.
for everyone, Heather, if you don't already know, Heather is much more experienced in terms of comic making than I am.
That's true.
So it's kind of hard to say that.
That's not true. No, but you had Moth to a Flame.
Yeah.
So I went back and checked Moth to a Flame, and which is your book with Roisin Loughran.
Violet C, you're thinking of Alan's book.
Oh no, I like how you just nodded as well. Violet C. I was like, she's not reacting.
I was like, close, close. It's still a Roisin one.
It is Roisin. Sorry, Roisin. Sorry, Kirsty. Violet C. That is a great book.
That was really fun, and like very different to ours as well. That like Roisin is also like a very lyrical kind of atmospheric comics writer as well. So it was fun for that reason too. There was like a lot of free reign there. Like I've had luck so far working with people who are like, yeah, go for it, Kirsty, do what you want to.
Yeah, we'll just let you do what you want because we want you to be on board so much. Yeah, so we did check those things out, and you'd obviously like you knew what you were getting into. You'd asked for a kind of comic.
Yeah, and I'd heard your spooky business before. I knew what I was in store for.
Yes, my sweet spooky business. And then we had worked together on that one page, which I think is like invaluable. Like if you can work together even on just one page, I think that's amazing, because then you know even just like how somebody likes to do their work, because like or like communicate, because like me and Alan have these insanely long email chains, which he normally names something really hilarious and stupid. And then they're like, 30 emails long by the time the book goes out. But like you're like you like a WhatsApp. Even just knowing
I'm really bad though, because sometimes I'll just like ambush you at like literally any time of day, and I've not asked this question when we've had a meeting or anything, but I'll just be drawing and I'll be like, I really need Heather's assistance on this, and just like call you on the back phone and be like, help.
There's nothing better than like in the middle of the day somebody gives you a text, or in the middle of the night somebody gives you a message about like something crazy to do with our comic. That's
But I love hearing about how you and Alan work as well, because it's clearly like such a different process.
Yeah. Alan doesn't do what I tell him. That's also true. No, he's wonderful to work with. He's excellent. I'm saying this because he knows where I live. Yeah, and then I did also check out the scripting style, because like I say, it's like a really loose scripting style with no panels. Don't tell people where the panels are, and I always have to check that that's okay.
I don't know what I would have done, whether I would have like come back and be like, no panels, please, and then I would still have just done something different anyway.
That's true, because you're playing fast and loose, because you're like adding more pages and stuff.
Yeah, every now and then I'll text Ever and be like, I know you've already priced our book, but I feel like so I can be indulgent and make a whole panel of this, a big Victorian photograph that like I've decided that we need an additional page here, and I've done that like several times.
It was great because it
Going to
started
out.
It's 62 pages and it started out at 48. Yeah. But that's fine, because some of that happened in the script. Some of that did happen in the script, which was true. Part of your editing. Because we were both working at BHP Comics, and they're big on 48 pages, and we were like, yeah, 48 pages, nice format, doesn't make the box too heavy.
Neat,
but
love
it. Yeah. But it just needed the extra 14 pages, and that's what we're getting. Is that the difference? Yes. I was like, don't say a number, Heather, because you can't do that. And then I've done it.
I was like, that's confident. I like it. Go for it.
Glad that it came off as confident. So yes, there's like loads of changing to like accommodate each other, I guess.
Yeah. It's been nice as well, because it's only ever exciting. Like when you came through with the new version of the script, it was like amazing and very cool. And then you've always been really lovely whenever I've fired like thumbnails or pages and stuff at you, and it always just kind of like recharges you for doing the next kind of chunk of it.
Yeah, you gotta like cheerlead each other, don't you? Do stuff like this, I think. Because the next question is, how has it been? Has it been more difficult working collaboratively during the pandemic? And I don't know about that, but I do think it's more important than ever to like cheer each other on.
Yeah. Heather's really good at like checking in when I've gone into like a weird comic hole and being like, actually, it's all okay. This is good. And then I get all really hyped up again. I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. This is great. I think the only thing is
Fine.
in the before times, it was nice because we would be able to add going out to that and go for like sushi or something and like
Yeah.
have a nice time around about it, which obviously like isn't the same now. But
Remember when we were 3D?
crazy.
It's kind of handy for me because you're so social. So like if I just take your entire social life out of your calendar,
It's really helped with productivity.
yeah, there's just a lot more time for Smithers&Wing. So,
I had thought about that and I was like, man, I can't say it's worth it, the global pandemic, just to get our book done in a more timely fashion. Like, I'm like, what awful spell did I ever do to make this harder?
I like the idea that possibly I'm capable of that. I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that.
There's like a long, dark, lonely winter ahead, and plenty of time for Smithers&Wing.
It's true. I don't think it's been it's just been different. I don't think it's been more difficult.
No, I've still felt like I could bother you fairly easily without
Yeah,
us being
great.
in the same
Yeah.
room.
And we've still had like lengthy meetings on Zoom. I think because everything's on Zoom, you know, it's all okay. Like all our social lives are there as well as all our work life and
Yeah, we've just accepted that this is the way it is currently. Although we won't be like, I don't think I'll be adding masks to everyone in Smithers&Wing.
yeah, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. I have seen some people doing masks and like really inventively. I'm trying to remember who it was. I'll link it if I can find
Oh,
it
that
again.
sounds cool. Because I asked you like a wee while ago, I was like, so Smithers&Wing set currently, but like 2019, yeah, we seen
Yeah,
2019.
the time before for sure.
But it will
Um,
be really cool to see how people handle that kind of thing in their comics. Like,
agreed, agreed. So interesting. Um, I think this is our last question. Let me just double check. Yeah, so a few people, which is really nice, asked if there will be more Smithers&Wing. So like we haven't even got issue 1 or the first volume.
it's like, guys, you don't even know what you're in for yet.
I know, but they're in. They've bought in because we're 90% funded as of like 5 minutes ago. And people want more, which is really exciting. It's actually gone up since we last checked. I've just checked now, and we've got an extra 25 quid.
No backers the joy that you bring us when you do this.
I know.
Every single like tenor, me and Heather text each other like, yes.
I literally have gone like what's his face from Home Alone when he slaps himself in the face. I've done that more times than I care to admit.
Oh.
A few. So yeah, people are hoping for more. Kirsty, what do you think? I feel like I'm ambushing you because we haven't really discussed it.
We haven't really discussed it. One, because this might shock people, or you might already be aware of it, but I'm the slowest at making comics. Actually,
I'm quietly slow, you're in good company.
if only it were that tier of quality, but
Sorry, Ben, it is. Best I can take that.
yeah, I also work full time. Like I guess many people doing this who also are quicker. So that's not a full excuse, but yeah, I am quite slow with odd bursts of like it being crunch time and me speeding up a bit and being like, yes, I can do 4 pages a day. Let's go. So I don't know. I think like we've been working on this for like a couple of years now. It's been like a few years since you wrote it,
Yeah.
and kind of I guess it's like picked up over the course of this year. Like I was kind of coming in and out of it a bit in previous years, but this has been most of like working on it consistently. So
When our social lives fell apart.
exactly, such a boon to comics production.
Right?
So I don't know, I do love these guys, but also I think it's been such a big chunky project as well. And for someone that's not made a lot of comics, it's always that way where you're like, oh, I'm learning a lot, but I also have to live with my early page mistakes and not go back and deal with them constantly. And you do see like you learn lots of different things when you do small projects. So I don't know, maybe there's some like short Smithers&Wing adventures, sexy one shots, and we're
My
like,
God, yes. I would love to do that.
I think that'd be fun.
That would be so great. That would be so great. I have like an inkling of what, if there were to be a sequel, what I would do. But the thing is, it's going to take years to write, because right now, Alan and I are working on second volume of Gravewax. He's stuck. I keep adding more to it for him to get away.
He can't like keep up with the pages that get added.
He just keeps going. Yeah, so there's like loads of other stuff going on. I've got my hyper objects. So it would take years to bring another sort of draft to you, probably. At least a year. What are you doing next year? I'm joking. But shorts would be amazing.
Shorts would be fun.
So
I was
fun.
saying, I'm like, oh, I felt big artisty guilt because whenever I'm not working on Smithers&Wing, I'm like, oh, you bad person. So part of me is like, oh, next year I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to make comics. I'm just going to hang out and be an outdoors person. But I'm sure I'll get bored within like
that's the year I'll take to
that.
write the next volume.
And then I'll come to you tanned and weather beaten and be like, Heather, the outdoors is boring. I've seen it all.
Yeah. And I will crawl out of this whole like paler than ever before. Just be like, yes, here it is. My next work.
We can switch places and I'll descend into the cave and you may emerge free.
There are people out there. I don't know if you know that. Now if I see people in the park, I'm like, what are you doing in my park? This is mine. No.
It's too much, yeah.
Unacceptable.
Everyone's a comic creator now. Everyone's living those levels of social anxiety.
Right. But now we don't even get cons to go and like hang out and see 3D people. Tragic.
Yeah. I know, I was looking at the thought bubble tables and it was really nice, but also just making me truly sad that I couldn't like go wander about.
No, I know. Yeah, normally this is like when you spend like way too much time with absolutely bonkers people that you just love so much. Like it's tough to not be hanging out there.
Yeah.
But their tables.
You should be dancing with like Nicola Love right now.
I should be. It's 8 o'clock. I should be heading to bed, and then waiting for Nicola to come in, completely drunk, and tell me a great story. And that's what I want. I want to fall secondhand about the party. While I have sat quietly in a bar. Man, never miss that. Yeah, I think, is that all our questions? We've like teased.
Yeah, I think anyone has made it
short stories.
Yeah, anyone who's made it along this far gets an additional special prize for listening to us chat.
I actually think also I might have been recording just your face at the beginning, so that's fun. We'll get to check that out.
Oh, that's a fun nightmare. Thanks for that.
Welcome. And I've set dressed so carefully. So
this is incredible. I wish I'd done better. I should have like set up some candles and stuff.
I've been like really working on it because I've been working at home, obviously, everything, because my day job's now at home. And I was just living as a sort of trash badger, and I made things happen here. Got some moon cup to like make me feel happy inside.
It's amazing. It's like a whole aesthetic.
Very goth aesthetic over here. Yeah, so you get extra points for sticking around as long. The bonus is seeing Kirsty's face, just Kirsty's face at the beginning.
Lucky you.
Congrats. And thanks for coming. Please, goodness, back our wonderful Kickstarter for our wonderful book, Smithers&Wing, if you haven't already. Enjoy our updates and check out our friends on the Thought Bubble, the wonderful Thought Bubble digital halls. This is kind of what we're celebrating today.
Yep.
Because we don't get to do this pitch to you in a bar. So And thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.